Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the place that's making music matter for kids. Revolutionizing music education through old school music technology and modern day governing. In this video, you'll see how we plan to use some of the $60 billion of federal taxpayers' dollars and the billions the music industry makes each year to make music education great again. So let's dive in. Over the last few years, Washington spent $200 billion on top of the $60 billion they spend annually on federal school funding to help students recover from the COVID learning loss. Let's start with the Federal Pandemic Relief Fund and how well that worked out to help kids catch up on schoolwork, keep them connected, and rebuild engaging music programs. While kids' test scores crashed to all-time low, teachers laid off, music programs across the country continued to get cut, and families still had to pay out of pocket for decent music programs. So where did all that money go? The Department of Government Efficiency found billions in COVID relief funds used for political priorities and unclaimed luxuries. My name is Miley. I'm the founder of Making Music Matter for Kids, a 501c3 community scholarship granting music organization. For over 20 years, I've been teaching and advocating for kids' music, organize events, develop business plans, and along the way, I bridged a gap to a broken system to empower talented kids who thought they were not because the things they were good at, their schools didn't value. Through years of trial and error, I've created a system to reform music education and adopt my own behavior through creative scheduling, where the Department of Education has failed. I've learned to standardize my own progress to measure potential growth, not the kids. In 2014, a few years after I opened Rock School in Northeast PA, a local school board eliminated kindergarten to third grade music education, and I was asked by them if I could help. This was how Making Music Matter for Kids got started. One evening, while researching nonprofit music education for kids, I stumbled across this Kids for Cash scandal. This is crazy. 2 local judges were arrested after orchestrating a multi-million-dollar scheme sending minor children as young as 8 years old to jails and detention centers for minor offenses in exchange for kickbacks. A woman's son was picked up at a high school drinking party, and unfortunately, this corruption had ended up in a fatal consequence. This, ladies and gentlemen, was the moment I realized that the need to help these kids in Northeast PA. Later in this video, this woman has a message for me that confirms everything that I've been doing for the past 10 years. So fast forward to 2016, months before we received federal tax status, the school I was helping made a decision to create short-term cuts and long-term tax damage. While the school's music program remained on the chopping block, tax hikes had families choosing between food on the table or music for their kids. This is where it became clear that the Department of Education was using taxpayers' generosity. Our most valuable tool for diplomacy has failed. But today, there's hope, thanks to the Department of Government Efficiency for scrutinizing the waste, fraud, and abuse. So, ladies and gentlemen, do you believe that those federal tax dollars should reach kids and not the Department of Education? Then like, share, subscribe, and keep watching. Since transferring the organization to Jersey at the end of 2024, I began to organize a business plan around this YouTube channel to incorporate an independent, comprehensive, community-engaged performing arts center at the Jersey Shore. While blueprinting the business plan and everything else that goes into moving, I scripted the goals I've accomplished for the past 20 years. Ironically, 10 years later, while I was doing this, the woman that paid the ultimate price in this Cash for Kids corruption came up in the news. extremely upset that the judge in this scandal was pardoned. Yeah, I can't make this up. Let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are. On March 20th, 2025, an amazing executive order was written to dismantle the Department of Education and DEI gender ideology funding and return education decisions back to families, enabling parents, teachers, and communities to best ensure students' success. Our nation's bright future relies on empowering families, engaged communities, and excellent education opportunities for every child. Unfortunately, the experiment of controlling American education through federal programs and dollars and the unaccountable bureaucracy these programs and dollars supply has plainly failed our children, our teachers, and our families. Taxpayers spent around $200 billion at the federal level on school during the COVID-19 pandemic, on top of the more than $60 billion they spend annually on federal school funding. This money is largely distributed by one of the newest cabinet agencies, the Department of Education, which has existed for less than 1/5 of our nation's history. Congress created the Department of Education in 1979 at the urging of the President Jimmy Carter, who received a first ever president endorsement from the country's largest teachers union. Shortly after pledging to the union his support for a separate Department of Education, since then, the Department of Education has entrenched the education bureaucracy and sought to convince America that federal control over education is beneficial. While the Department of Education does not educate anyone, it maintains a public relations office that includes 80 staffers at the cost of more than $10 million per year. I'm sorry, yes, $10 million, that's correct. Closing the Department of Education would provide children and their families the opportunity to escape a system that is failing them. Today, American reading and math scores are near a historical low. This year's National Assessment of Education Progress showed that 70% of 8th graders were below proficient in reading and 72% were below proficient in math. The federal education bureaucracy is not working. Closure of the Department of Education would drastically improve program implementation in higher education. The Department of Education currently manages a student loan debt portfolio of more than $1.6 trillion. Yes, that's with a T, trillion dollars. This means that the federal student aid program is roughly the size of one of the nation's largest banks, Wells Fargo. But although Wells Fargo has more than 200,000 employees, the Department of Education has fewer than 1,500 in its office of federal student aid. The Department of Education is not a bank, and it must return bank function to the entity equipped to serve students. Ultimately, the Department of Education's main function can and should return to the states. The Secretary of Education shall, to the maximum extent appropriate and permitted by law, take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education and return authority over education to the states and local communities, while ensuring that effectiveness and uninterrupted delivery of services, programs, and benefits on which the Americans rely. Consistent with the Department of Education's authorities, the Secretary of Education shall ensure that the allocation of any federal Department of Education funds is subject to rigorous compliance with federal law and the administration policy, including the requirement that that any program or activity receiving federal assistance is to terminate illegal discrimination obscured under the label diversity, equity, and inclusion, or similar terms and programs promoting gender ideology. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Making Music Matter for Kids' first phrase created by President Donald J. Trump's agenda to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse with the Department of Education. Our golden ticket to make music education for kids based on passion and not income. 3 months after this executive order was written, Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill was passed on July 4th, 2025, the largest donation incentive the country has ever seen, putting serious deductions in donors' hands to benefit kids' education across the country. But first, let me walk you through several incentives for donating so you know exactly how giving can help kids' music education and also your bottom line. The biggest tax incentive is the traditional charitable deduction. When you itemize, you can deduct donations for up to 60% of your adjusted gross income. This means if your AGI is $100,000, you can potentially deduct up to $60,000 in cash gifts in a single year. This 60% limit for cash gifts to public charities like Making Music Matter for Kids remains generous under the new law. Say you're in a higher tax bracket, say 35 to 37%. Even the new 35% cap on the value of itemized deductions, every deductible dollar you give can reduce your tax bill significantly. Under this bill, there is now a rule that effectively caps the benefit of itemized deductions, including charitable deductions, at a 35%. That's still a powerful reduction for generous donors. Second, there is a new universal, above-the-line charitable deduction created in connection with this tax reform package. This is designed for people who don't itemize. Under the new rules, individual taxpayers can claim a charitable deduction of up to $1,000, and a couple filing jointly can claim up to $2,000, even if they don't even if they take the standard deduction. To use this benefit, you must give to a public charity like Making Music Matter for Kids, not a donor-advised funds supporting organization, private foundations, or political causes. So if you just take the standard deduction and don't itemize, you can still get a break simply by making a donation that opens the doors to 90% of the taxpayers. Third, the One Big Beautiful Bill makes the larger standard deduction permanent. The standard deduction is roughly $15,750 for single filers, $23,625 for household, and $31,500 for married filing jointly. This amount adjusts over time. Why does this matter? By combining the higher standard deduction with the new universal above-the-line charitable deduction, many donors can get 2 layers of tax benefit. The big standard deduction plus an additional deduction for donations to charities, even when you don't itemize. Fourth, there's a special boost for seniors 65 and older. From 2025 to 2028, taxpayers aged 65 and older can claim an additional $6,000 deduction on top of their standard or itemized deductions, and combine all three: the regular charitable deduction, itemized or universal, the main standard deduction, and this extra senior deduction. For seniors passionate about leaving a legacy that's making music matter for kids, this combination can significantly lower taxpayers' income while funding instruments, lessons, and scholarships for kids who could not otherwise afford them. Now, fifth, there's the estate and legacy angel. The federal estate and gift tax exemption is scheduled to rise to about $15 million per person, indexed for inflation. For high net worth donors to pass wealth to families and a charitable legacy as a tool by leaving part of the estate to a public charity to reduce its taxable value. This can create a permanent legacy that funds music scholarships and community programs, knowing that your life's work continues long after you're gone. And six, for businesses and or corporation, donors' charitable gifts remain deductible with some new rules. Deductions when they exceed 1% taxable income, capped around 10%, and a 5-year carryover for unused deductions through your corporate giving department. By directing part of your charitable budget, this is a great way to align tax planning with your social responsibility for companies that want visible community impact by championing our organization's Rock School music program or sponsoring a Making Music Matter for Kids event. As always, check with the IRS to get the most out of your charitable tax donation. So if you want your money to do double duty, reduce your taxes and support our country's greatest wealth, our kids, and believe federal tax dollars should reach kids' music education, join the movement. Like, share, subscribe, and get involved. Right now is a perfect opportunity to become a Rock School crew member. By doing so, you'll be part of a movement to help this channel grow and make music education great again. Here's where it gets interesting. Trump's one big beautiful chess move, the ECCA, the Educational Choice for Children's Act, giving us the opportunity to end the bureaucracy on music education starting January 1st, 2027, and making sure those federal tax dollars reach kids, not the hands of politicians. The average property owner pays a 36% tax for public education. 30 to 90% of Jersey residents see 50% of their property taxes fund the Department of Education. Here's a great opportunity for homeowners to help end the crisis on music education. Taxpayers can donate up to $1,700 and receive a 100% dollar-for-dollar deduction on federal taxes. Married couples filing jointly can claim up to $3,400. Then we give 90% of that donation directly to K-12 families to be used for all sorts of musical education and equipment expenses. For example, just one taxpayer's donation of $1,700 through our Rock School music program gives a child a year of performance-based music education and access to free music equipment. And the ECC isn't just for private music lessons. Your donation can provide online lessons, video courses, audio-video recording, and musical equipment. Pretty much anything needed to ignite a child's learning experience. And Making Music Matter for Kids will support them each step of the way. Even though this bill is federal, it's not without limitations. The biggest limitation is that it's up to a state governor to opt in for the kids to receive the scholarship. As of now, our New Jersey state governor doesn't support school choice for kids, even though the bill is designed to sit on top of and complement any existing or future state level choice or tax program rather than replace them. If you believe those federal tax dollars can end the bureaucracy on kids' music education, then like, share, and subscribe. It helps the YouTube algorithms reach more awesome people like you. Under federal law, Making Music Matter for Kids is incorporated as a 501c3 public charity scholarship granting music organization. Regardless of our governor's decision, there's no federal restrictions for us to grant kids scholarships to other states that have opted in to the ECCA. Even though it would be beneficial to have our governor opt in to ECCA, this bill puts us in a unique position to structure the organization as a national music scholarship engine. With help from Linda McCann, the Secretary of Education, we're preparing to create the first National Music Education Choice for Children's Act headquarters in New Jersey. I'll go over more about this later in this video. But first, how do families qualify to receive the 90% of the $1,700 from the ECCA grant? First, you must have a child enrolled in a public school and be under the 300% area median income. The median income qualifies 85 to 90% of the entire population. For example, say your area income is $100,000. You can earn $300,000 and still qualify. No longer is our organization just for low-income families. No more financial constraints, limited access to quality music education. Families will no longer face judgment for seeking assistance, perceived as being unable to provide. The truth is, the Department of Education has failed, and this bill puts tax dollars back into families' pockets to choose what's best for their kids. Making Music Matter for Kids will continue to leverage federal laws to provide all families with direct music scholarships in states that are not opt-in, and will continue to fight for kids' music education. To unlock this vision, I've created this YouTube channel as a strategic platform to help deliver the National Music Educational Choice for Children's Act across the country. While we gear up for this bill to go into full effect, you can help us expand our reach nationally by liking, subscribing, and sharing. If you have made it this far in the video about taxes, thanks. It really helps me know that I'm not alone in this fight. And it also helps the algorithm too. This new bill puts the focus right on our organization's mission: music education based on passion, not income. Here to build a crew of awesome supporters, innovators, and industry leaders to spark inspiration, create innovation, and inspire the next generation. Working together by emphasizing music's amazing benefits for kids and supporting their talents through special events, donations, volunteer, and technical assistance for young people, empowering them to learn, create, and perform. Now, we're taking our mission to the next level by creating a movement by using old school music technology and modern day governing policies, creating an era to end the crisis on musicians and the bureaucracy on music education for kids. That's why we've purchased the rights to Indie Music Inc., our all-new independent music label, along with our comprehensive, community-engaged, performance-based future music studio, revolutionizing the music industry through music education and making America rock again. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and make the new era of music go viral. So if you want to learn more about Indie Music Inc., stick around because it'll be coming up in the next video. Thanks for watching, keep rocking, and we'll see you then. Thanks. Have a good day. Goodbye.